Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice big 12-game Major League Baseball slate. Before I get started, you can guys smash that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel a lot. Really do appreciate it. Now, I do note that on these big slates, I tend to play light because these can be pretty tough with so many games. With that said, though, we do have a lot of good games. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, or actually 7 games. I'm sorry, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, 5 games with 8.5 runs or better, and then most of the rest are under 8, and many of them are 7.5. And we have one game with 7 runs, which is the Kansas City Seattle game. So on the over under there. So we do have some weather concerns as well, but it looks like most of these games should be fine. I don't really think that any weather is going to affect these games, at least not at this point. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see as we get closer to the slate and get some more information. So, with that said, let's get into our pitchers. Now, we have a ton of pitchers on the slate. It's definitely going to be a difficult slate from that perspective because there's so many good ones. But let's see here. So we do have some pitchers we like quite a bit today. I'm actually just going to show you my list here and kind of make it easy and try to go through them a little bit better here. So for our pitchers here, we're going to start at the top with Gavin Stone. Stone, Kirby are my top two guys. Stone's a little bit cheaper, and he's facing San Francisco. He's also got a pretty good strikeout potential today and a low total, so I think he's my favorite play so far on the slate. He's a good GPP play. I don't really think there's anybody that is core play status today, but we have several good GPP options. With Kirby, he's facing Kansas City, which is a little bit tougher matchup than what Stone has. And he's not too expensive today. I was a little worried he's going to be more expensive, but he's cheap here. His K rate is a little less than Stone's, but he definitely has good potential for the slate. And then Lopez for the Atlanta Braves, they're facing the Cubs, and he's going to have some good opportunity there as well. I think if you mix and match these three guys, you're going to have some potentially good stuff when you do your stacks. But I do also like Eflin, Cutter Crawford, and Christopher Sanchez. I think they're all decent GPP plays, but they do have tougher matchups, and I do like some bets from their teams and games from on this slate here. Then we have some extreme GPP plays and Brady Singer, who's facing Seattle. Seattle's been very extreme, but his K rate is a little bit lacking today. And then Imanga for the Cubs facing Atlanta. He has a high ceiling, but he definitely has a lower floor today due to the Atlanta game. And then I have three Hail Marys and Randy Vasquez, Matt Manning, and Trevor Williams. These three all have some potential today as they do have some upside, but getting over 15 to 16 fantasy points for these three will be a really nice game for them. But they face very good matchups here from Colorado, Miami, and Chicago White Sox. So and they don't have that much strikeout potential. And the name of the game in baseball is getting strikeouts. If you want to score fantasy points with pitchers, getting strikeouts is the way to go. So obviously, looking at these top 5 players, they have the best strikeout stuff outside of the manga, and they have the best opportunity to have good games today. So let's go ahead and move into our batters here. We will start with our catchers on this one. And we have Logan O'Hoppe as our favorite base catcher here for the Angels. Now, the Angels do look decent today from a fantasy perspective. So I do think he's a really good option. And if you stack up the Angels, you definitely want to get to them. Obviously, I'll get to the stacks here later in the video. Then we're going to look at Yanir Diaz for Houston. He's also a great play on the slate. He's also just $4,000. This is a fully good value play slate for catcher, so you definitely can pay down here and get some upside. Travis d'Arnaud, Cal Raleigh for Seattle, who's hitting home runs. Mariano for Arizona is a nice cheap play today, though he hasn't hit a home run yet this season. Shea Langerlays, he should be pretty cheap today as a good option on the slate at this $3,800 for Oakland. And then also Bo Naylor draws some really good potential today, and he's one of the cheapest options that we have. So catchers at very good position. It's very deep today. I expect quite a few home runs from this position. So just jump around on your lineups, and if you stack the team, put the catcher with it for the most part. At least the guys I mentioned here. Maybe in first base here, we'll start with Ohtani. Now, he is day-to-day, but I do expect him likely to play today. We'll have to wait and see if that is true, but if he does play, he'll be somebody to consider, though he's extremely expensive and hard to roster as a result. Josh Naylor also looks really solid today as an expensive play, but he's been hitting the ball pretty well lately, and he has a lot of potential in this game against Texas. I also like Christian Walker as a little bit of a cheaper play at $4,700. He does draw good potential today. But some value plays here. Yanair Diaz, uh, let's see, for Tampa Bay. He is right around $4,000, which is a little bit cheaper than he's been, but he's really hitting the ball good the last few games, so I do like his upside on this one. And then Luis Arraez, he is going to be a very popular play today for San Diego, as he's really hit the ball well since joining San Diego. So I like his potential today. He's really been good most of the season, but he's really stepped it up lately. And then Spencer Steer for Cincinnati is a good one-off for the Reds, though he's a little bit overpriced today, so to keep that in mind. Maybe in second base, I really do like second base today. Altuve, Albies, Simeon, and Bryce Turang are all in play as the top overall options. Their metrics are all very similar, and it's going to be hard to choose between any of those guys. But you could also look at Luis Arraez at this position as a good value play here at $4,500. But I also like Nolan Gorman for St. Louis. I also like Toro for Oakland, and then Nico Goodrum as a good one-off from the Angels. Now, I think that the best way to do this first and second base is honestly, I do want a lot of Luis Arias in there, and then if you want Yandy Diaz, who's probably the best value play at first base, then put him there, and then put Arias at second, or put in Gorman at second, and then put Arias at first. That's probably going to be the way that I look at this the most. But I really do like Arraez a lot today, so he's going to be somebody that I'm going to try to roster in a lot of lineups. Moving at third base here, we'll start at the top here with Rafael Devers. It looks like a really solid play here. Even though I do like Eflin as a pitcher, I do think Devers is one of the few guys on the team that has a lot of potential today. Uh, then I also like Isaac Paredes for Tampa Bay as a top tier option, and he's also been hitting the ball very well this season, and he's got good home run metrics for this game. Looking at some value plays at this play position, though, Bregman jumps off the page as a very good play on the slate, as he's nice and cheap, and he has been hitting the ball better lately. The fantasy points will come as he gets going, but he's only had one home run yet, but he is hitting the ball better now, and so he's definitely a viable option. Arenado is a really good play for St. Louis today. He's a little bit pricey, but he has good potential on this one. I also like Suarez. Let's see, Suarez for uh, for Arizona at $4,000. He's just nice and cheap here. And then Candelario for Cincinnati looks a really solid play at this position, though he could also play at first base, but there's a lot of good options at first. So he's in play, but he's high risk. Looking at the shortstops, we do like CJ Abrams the best at this position. He's extremely expensive today, but he does draw good metrics. Corey Seager also in a good spot here, as is Cruz for Pittsburgh, and I really do like Cruz a lot today as he is a powerful hitter, and he's been absolutely phenomenal lately. He's got good home run potential today as well. I also like Lindor is a value play, though he's a little bit expensive today. Adames kind of fits in the same bill. I like Adames a little bit better than Lindor, but then some cheap options: Zach Neto, Caballero, uh, for Tampa Bay, and then Kim for San Diego. If he ends up drawing the start, he's definitely somebody to consider today, though uh, he's currently day to day being that he got hit yesterday. So moving the outfielders, we do like Acuna Jr. Then we also like Corbin Carroll. Oopsie. Now I wanted to mention Carroll has really struggled a lot for a while, but he's finally having some decent games recently. He is a little bit pricey, but he's definitely in play. And then Otani, obviously, I mentioned at first base as well. I also like Alvarez for Houston a lot, and Yelich for Milwaukee as top plays here. But if we look at some value plays here, we got quite a few guys to look at. Josh Lowe for Tampa Bay looks like a really great play here. Newt Bar for St. Louis, Duran for Boston, looks a very solid play, though he's a little bit expensive. Brian Reynolds for Pittsburgh looks great. Jack Sawinski for Pittsburgh also looks really good. Marte for New York Mets is an interesting one-off play. Gavin Sheets for Chicago White Sox looks really solid today. Seth Brown is a guy I like a lot today as a very cheap play. And Brendan Donovan finally here for St. Louis looks like a good play. I do think St. Louis is a pretty stackable team today. And then JJ Bleday for Oakland and Sal Frelick for Milwaukee all join in that potential for outfielders. Maybe there are sub 3,000 plays. So Seth Brown is a top overall guy for cheap options and that are under $3,000. I don't love him, but he is interesting today, and so he's probably the best option if you just need a cheap option. But Nico, see, Goodrum, sorry for the Angels. He's $2,300 and he draws really good potential today, and he also is a sub 3,000 players. So Harrison Bader for the Mets is another one-off for the Mets that you could look at dirt cheap price. Fairchild for Cincinnati also fits into that situation there at $2,900. Kyle Manzardo for Cleveland. He has yet to really have a good game, but he does draw good metrics here again, and so if he can get going, then he's definitely going to be able to pay off. Alec Burleson for St. Louis, also interesting today as a dirt cheap play. And then Butler for Oakland has some upside, but he's extremely risky, kind of Hail Mary like. So moving into our stacks, we have a lot of stacks today because we have a lot of games. So we have 24 teams playing today. And if we look at these stacks, we're going to see that we have a lot of opportunity here to do different things. My top three stacks are Houston, San Diego, and Arizona. So for Houston, I do like Alvarez, Altuve, Bregman, and Diaz, and then either Tucker or Loperfido if you want to try to save some money and go with Loperfido. Tucker does fit in, but he's probably my fourth or fifth best on that team. So I think he can be replaced with Loperfido to save some money. Looking at San Diego, you want either Tatis Jr. or Merrill. I think Tatis isn't as great today as he normally can be, so he is a little bit riskier. And so Merrill is a good offset from him. And then Arraez, Machado, Cronenworth, and then either Bogarts or Campusano, depending on how you want to ride that. I don't think you necessarily have to use the catchers if I didn't list them above before, but they definitely have a little potential there. For Arizona, Carroll, Walker, Peterson, and then two of either of these guys with Marte, McCarthy, Suarez, Moreno, Alexander, or Gurriel. They all have a lot of potential today. Looking at Washington, Abrams, Menendez, Young, and then either Winker or Ruiz, and then Garcia Jr. is a really solid option. You could even just do one of each with Winker and Ruiz. Then for Texas, Simeon, Seager, Garcia, Carter, Lowe, and Tavares. I know that's six guys, but you could just take one of them out. It's just really hard to decipher one over the other in this particular situation. Looking at the Angels, Ward, Hope, Pilar, Goodrum, and Nito. And then if one of those guys were to be pulled not in the lineup, then Chanel. And if two of them were not in the lineup, then Paris would also be interesting today. For Milwaukee, Yelich, Frelick, Adames, Turang, and then either Contreras or Perkins are in play here. Those are my top options at this position. Then we will look at the Dodgers. Now, Ohtani, Freeman, and Outman and Lux all look solid today, but I just didn't like much else beyond them. Maybe Pages would be okay, but he's kind of risky on this one. For St. Louis, Dubar, Donovan, Arenado, Gorman, and Carpenter. This looks like a kind of a sneaky stack. I think it's probably better than what it looks like, but it should be interesting. For Cleveland, Naylor, Jimenez, Brendan, Manzardo, and Naylor. So this is actually a decent stack today. It's a little expensive than I'd like it to be based on the fact that most of these guys should be cheaper, but I do think is a viable option. For Boston, Devers, Duran, O'Neill, Abreu, and Grissom looks like a really solid stack. For Atlanta, it's super expensive, but Acuna, Albies, Ozuna, Darno, and then Arcia. For the White Sox, Sheets, Jimenez, Pham, Benintendi, and Vaughn. Then we're going to get into our stacks that aren't going to be as likely to be solid today. But we do like a couple of these stacks here with Cincinnati, Steer, India, Candelario, Fairchild, and then one of Espinal, Stevenson, or Mali. For Tampa Bay, Lowe, Diaz, Arizona, Parades, and DeLuca. Now, I like that stack quite a bit today. Oakland, Brown, Blade, Toro, Rooker, and Langoliers. This does have some home run potential. For Philly, Boom, Real Muto, Castellanos, and then two of Merrifield, Rojas, and Sosa. For Seattle, I do like Raleigh, Polanco, Rayleigh, France, and Rojas as a value stack. I think this Pittsburgh stack is a lot better than what it looks like here with Cruz, Reynolds, Sawinski, Talese, and then either McCutcheon or Trillo, depending on how you want to, what kind of money you have left over. For the Mets, Marte, Lindora, Alonso, Bader, and Martinez. And then if we get these bottom four stacks, the Cubs, Colorado, San Francisco, and Kansas City. These are the teams I'm going to avoid for the most part, but they do have some one-off options like Bellinger, McMahon, Wade, and Witt Jr. That said, I think I'm going to probably stay or clear from these for the most part. So thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to leave them below today.